Yo, what is good, YouTube, and welcome back to another JC2K video. In today's video, we're going to be doing episode number 42 of I Build Your Teams, the series where I build my viewers' teams into the best teams possible for my team unlimited and or competitive play based on how much MT they have and what their squad is currently looking like. Before we hop into the video, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 6,000 subscriber mark on the channel. I upload every single day, and I would really appreciate your support if you haven't already, if you do subscribe. Without further ado, let's not waste your time. Let's hop right into it and start off with the first team today, which comes in from my boy Peyton. He's got about 100 KMT on current gen, and looking at this squad, I really like this team a lot. You got Dyson Daniels and Jalen Rose, who are two tall, very versatile, really good point guards. Your whole team, honestly, is very, very good. I don't see any sort of significant flaws on this team. This may not even have been the best team to start with, to be completely honest, because I don't think you really need to change anything. One thing I would recommend doing, though, is grinding for and you're probably gonna hear this out of me a lot, but I would recommend grinding for Chris Webber. I just think that he's just a must-have. He's the best small forward in the game. He's totally free, and he gives you the opportunity to get Mark Eaton as well, who's a top big man in the game as well for free. Additionally, if you get lucky off the clutch time wheel. So I would definitely grind for Webber to start him at the 3 and bring Jabari Smith off the bench at the 3, or you could even sell Jabari Smith to free up some MT if you want. And then if you get Eaton as well, get lucky enough to get him, I would replace Manute with Eaton. I think Eaton is a better option than Manute. So I think that's another thing that you can do potentially if you do wind up getting lucky enough to get Eaton. But honestly, besides those two things, I don't really think there's anything you need to do. You could replace Rudy Gay with a guy like DeMar if you wanted to, but I don't think that's necessary. Really good squad for sure. Next team today comes in from Lckyball. He's got 800k on current gen, looking to spend around 400 to 500k to build the best team possible for him. And I like this team as well. It's another super solid squad. You got, 10 guys who can all play at a pretty high level. I think that one position that you could potentially look to upgrade would be your backup power forward position. I think one guy who really fits that bill and is super affordable at this point would be a guy like Bull. I think he's even a buyout. I'm not 100% sure of that. I don't know exactly what the market's looking like, but I don't think he's crazy expensive at this point. So I think that adding a guy like Bull as your backup power forward would be nice. And then I would focus on maybe 3 other upgrades. Those upgrades are going to be your starting shooting guard, your backup shooting guard, and your starting center position. I think for the backup shooting guard, easy, cheap upgrade is a guy like DeMar DeRozan, or even bring in Kobe. Actually, you know what you could just do is move Kobe to the bench. I think you could just do that. That's totally fine as well. But then I think you buy 2 guys, starting shooting guard, starting center. Those guys are going to be Taco Fall and Hero Michael Jordan. I think you add those 2 guys to your team, combining them with Bull to make some upgrades. It's going to be around that 400,000 or 500,000 MT range that you're willing to spend on your squad. But if you add those 3 dudes in MJ, Taco, and a guy like Bull off the bench, this team is really, really good. You'll still have a few 100,000 MT left for future moves. Next squad today comes in from Christopher. He's got about 76k MT. Saying any suggestions are useful. He's got Danny Granger, Larry Johnson, DeMar, Gerald Wallace, John Isaac, Pokashevsky, Hakeem, Manute, Nate Thurman, and D-Rob. Same thing like I recommended with the first team. I think definitely grinding for a guy like Chris Webber is almost a must, considering how good he is as a card. I just think he's kind of a must. You slide him in at that 3. If you get lucky enough to add Mark Eaton, he's going to be the best center on your team as well, so you could throw him in at the 5 and bring Manute off the bench. For the time being, I don't love D-Rob, I will say, but I think you can leave him there if you want. You could replace him with a guy like Mo Bamba if you want. Actually, the guy you should replace him with is Mark Williams. I think you add Mark Williams regardless, and then if you get Eaton, you play Mark Williams at the 4 and Eaton at the 5, and then have Hakeem and Manute come off the bench. But for the time being, what you could do is just throw Mark Williams in at the 4, leave Manute at the 5, and bring Hakeem off the bench at the backup 5 and sell D-Rob. So I think that's one upgrade that's almost a must to make. Other than that, I like the rest of your squad. Super solid budget squad. And then if you do get Eaton, you can sell Thurman as well and bring Hakeem and Bull off the, or Manute off the bench, and have Mark Williams and Eaton starting, and then obviously you're going to have Chris Webber in this lineup as well, which is going to free up a little bit more MT as well. So next squad today comes in from Danny. He's got about 600k and is open to all suggestions. Really good starting lineups. Bench, same thing. A lot of great cards. I think at this point, Bob Nedelik, he's a tiny bit outdated just because of his lack of size. I think replacing him with a guy like Bull, who's very affordable at this point and still an elite level power forward, is a great upgrade to make. I would definitely consider that. And then again, grind for Chris Webber. If you get Eaton, throw him in there in place of Manute Bull as your backup center, but get a Webber so that you can start him at the 3 and bring Thon off the bench, or a guy like Fernando off the bench. Either way, other than that, really don't have any sort of issues with this squad. Just make sure you're grinding for Webber and seeing if you can get Eaton as well, and then add another power forward in Bob Nedelik. Next squad today comes in from Callum. He's got 330k on current gen. His MJ has 79 Haas. Taco has 64. He's going for Webber, and yeah, so another really good squad. Once you get Webber, you're going to have Webber and then Fernando as your small forwards, which is really, really good. If you get Eaton, again, I've said it about 6 times, but if you get Eaton, you slide slide him in at that backup center position as an upgrade over Manute Bol. One thing I would recommend, I think Mark Williams is better than both Arvydas Sabonis and Boban Marjanovic. I would pick one of these two guys, whoever you prefer between Arvydas and Boban, play them as your backup backup power forward, and add Mark Williams at the starting four. I think that's one thing you can do that's going to be very cheap and very effective. And then at that point, I think your shooting guard positions are your biggest positions of need. I don't love Ant and I don't love RJ at this point. I think you look to add a guy like Rudy Gay in your starting lineup and then DeMar DeRozan off the bench. So you have a little bit more size and defense in your starters, and then off the bench you got a little bit more playmaking with a guy like DeMar. So add those two guys to shooting guard position, Mark Williams at the four, and pick one of these two guys to play your backup four, and then try to get Eaton from that clutch time wheel. Definitely add Chris Mullen as well, so you can Chris Webber, so you can have him as your starter, and Taco off the bench. No, Fernando off the bench. I can't speak. You make those upgrades though, really good, well-rounded squad. Second to last team today comes in from Heasel. He's got 850 KMT and is on currently grinded for James Harden. So once he has Harden, obviously Harden's going to be the best point guard on his team. He's got acceptable big men, I will say. I don't love this team though. I think Dr. J is really good. I think Mark Williams, Boban are both very solid cards. Horace Grant and Manute also. I think your power forward and center positions are pretty good, and I think Dr. J is fine. The rest of your squad though, I definitely think could use some upgrades. The players that I'm going to recommend to upgrade this squad, you know what? It's going to be easier to visualize because I think I'm going to be changing around a decent amount with this squad. It's going to be easier to visualize for me personally if I just build you a team based on what I would do. So at the starting one, I'd go Dyson Daniels. I think that's going to be one of your point guards, and then I think you go Harden as your backup PG, or vice versa. Either way, just have these two guys as your PGs. Did you have a good shooting guard that I like? Okay, Dr. J, I am a fan of. I think he can play for sure. Definitely do not mind that card. And then how much until you said 850K? Okay, cool. So we'll go Hero MJ at the starting one, not Invincible MJ. He's too expensive, but Hero MJ is not that expensive at this point. So I think you go something like this. Go get that Chris Webber that I keep talking about, but he's so good. He's the best small forward in the game and he's free. Make sure you go get him. And then off the bench, you have Tari Eason and RJ right now. I think a guy like Jabari Smith is a better option, who's not crazy expensive at this point either, and I think he's a great guy to run. And then I think you can have Mark Williams as your backup power forward. Go with a guy like Bol at the starting power forward, and then at your center position, pick up one of Taco or Yao, probably Taco, and then pick one of your centers between Manute and Boban to play that backup center position. And then if you do wind up getting lucky enough to get Mark Eaton, you throw him in at the backup center. If not, you go a guy like Manute and just plug him in there. So I think building a team something along these lines is definitely where I'd be targeting with this squad, and you have the MT to do that, especially once you get Harden and Harden, Webber, and potentially Eaton as well to add to your squad. So last team today comes in from Connor. He's got about 230 KMT and plays on current gen. He's got another squad with some good pieces and some pieces that I think aren't as good. And this is another team that I honestly think I can use 2KDB to rebuild and improve without, so it gives you a better picture basically of how you should probably be building your squad. So the first guy that I would recommend picking up is just going to be an easy budget point guard option. That's going to be Nicholas Batum. I think bringing Batum off the bench and having Johnny Davis as your starter is totally cool. And then obviously we're going to plug him in right there, Chris Webber. I'm going to keep plugging him in. Just make sure everybody's got to get this card. He's so good. He's not that hard to get. I think he's almost a must to add to your team. I don't love your shooting guards, I will say. So I think a guy like DeMar DeRozan would be a big guy to slot in at that starter, and then bring a guy like Kobe off the bench, one of the new Kobes, preferably the 75th anniversary Kobe, this new Dark Matter 75th anniversary Kobe. I think adding those two guys would be good. Your backup small forward position, again, I don't love the small forwards that you have right now. I don't mind Gerald Wallace, actually. You know what? To save a little bit MT, I think we throw Gerald Wallace here off the bench. He's not even that bad of a ball handler either. And then we go a guy like Thon Maker at the backup three. At the four, do you have any other good fours? So you got Mark Williams, so he's a dog. Definitely like that card a lot. Manute at the 5 is also very, very solid. If you do get Eaton again, you throw him in at that 5 and bring Manute off the bench. And then off the bench, we got Nate Thurmond and Ralph Sampson, who I don't think are elite. I would probably sell Nate Thurmond at this point. And then you can replace him with a couple different guys. I think one temporary fix would be a guy like Dark Matter Miles Turner. He's cheap, pretty darn efficient, just a super solid card. And then at the backup center, I'm not even really sure if there's a great backup center for you right now. I think I don't know. A guy like, I was going to say Mark Williams, but you already have him and you have Manute as well. So if you get Eaton, that would be your best case scenario. But if you don't have Mark Eaton, I'm not entirely sure for what you do for your backup center right now, because I can't think off the top of my head of any truly elite centers who are actually pretty affordable right now outside of guys like Mark Williams and Manute Bol. Maybe you move Mark Williams to the backup 5 like this and then throw in another power forward. I'm not even entirely sure who you throw into the power forward position. My brain is, oh, Bull. You have an FMT where you can throw in Bull because you have 230K. So you buy Nick Batum, you buy DeMar, you buy Thon Maker, you buy Bull, and you buy Miles Turner, and then you build this type of squad. This is a really, really good team and a massive upgrade over this squad right here. You could also go for Harden as well and replace Johnny Davis with Harden just to upgrade it some more. But I like this team a lot, and I think you have the capability to build it. So hopefully y'all do enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And if you want to be involved in a future episode of this series, make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link is in the description below. I post a tweet about this series every single Friday night, so drop your team and your MTM out under that tweet for a chance to be involved in the future episode. So again, hopefully y'all did enjoy the video. I'll be back with more 2K content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.